Mick and Barry with Fire on the Bluff, two potential recipients if they can raise the money for the Knights Arts Challenge grant, doing really cool arts, community-based programs within our community. So we're really happy to have them here today. Just a couple of notes: our wireless network, JJ Hill Guest Access is the password. Please tweet. That's our hashtag. Those are our two Twitter handles for 1 Million Cups, St. Paul, and the James J. Hill Center. There is also a welcome sheet, sign-in sheet in the back. If you are new and haven't signed up for our mailing list and want to get regular updates about who's presenting, what's going on, please sign up for that. And that is all my announcements. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Michael. Here you go, sir.
Thank you. As a paleosteological interpreter, I create skeletons of ancient imaginary creatures, often using the actual bones of contemporary mammals. I also create documentation for these creatures that tell their histories, and they're affectionately satirical of the narratives you find in science museums. Today I'm here to talk about my current project, which is the creation and installation of the bronze skeleton of an imaginary mammal in repose. Its rib cage will function as a bike rack, and a bony crest on the dome of its skull will suggest the form of a bike helmet. At 12 feet long and 4 feet high, it'll be magnificently graceful as art, and it will instantly appeal to the imaginations of people from all backgrounds. No object in nature captivates the attention of as many people as a prehistoric skeleton. Every time someone sees the paleosteological bike rack, they will smile. And it'll be a landmark to the bicycle community in St. Paul. In 2014, I received an Arts Challenge grant from the John L. and James S. Knight Foundation. The challenge is to raise 2/3 of the $120,000 budget and to find an acceptable site for the bike rack. When people come to my studio for visits, they often ask, how did I get started in this? Well, like many of you, when I was a kid, I always wanted a dinosaur skeleton. But when I started collecting bones many years later, they were from contemporary mammals. And as I held those mammal bones in my hands, I recognized consistent differences between them and the dinosaur bones I'd seen. And I realized that if I wanted my creatures to have integrity, they would also have to be mammals. Very special mammals that had taken an undocumented evolutionary path. Now, when the bones I require don't exist, I fabricate them using paper mache. I first began this in 2006 with the Oculus altus, a cycloptic biped that lived approximately 20 million years ago. I knew that museums use fiberglass to make bones, but that was way beyond my means. So I went next door to the library and checked out a book about paper mache. After I designed the skull, I sculpted it using plasticine clay, which never hardens and has a very oily base to it. After I finished the sculpting process, I began wrapping it in thin strips of newspaper soaked in paste, about 8 or 10 layers worth. When the paper mache was dry, I cut it open, removed it from the clay, and then reassembled the pieces of the paper mache back together. Then I detailed it, distressed it so it would look 20 million years old, and painted it appropriately. And I think you'll see that it came out rather well. Now, if a real cycloptic skull had been available, it would weigh over 30 pounds, whereas this one only weighs about 4 pounds, allowing the piece to stand without any visible support. I used paper mache more extensively when I was creating the griffin skeleton in 2009. The griffin, as you may know, is a mythological creature combining the lion and the eagle, and it dates back to ancient Mesopotamia, or modern-day Iraq. Because of the current unrest in the Middle East, I was unable to secure griffin bones, so I resolved to make my own. But I didn't want to just have a lion with a pair of wings stuck on it. I wanted my griffin to actually have the skeletal integrity to achieve flight. So I went to the vertebrae collection at the University of Minnesota and did hands-on study of actual eagle skeletons. When my research was concluded, I was able to create the bones that comprise the flight mechanism and incorporate them into the eagle skeleton. This is another example of my work, the Mesohippus. I made this using the complete skeleton of an infant modern horse, which would have been about the same size as the adult prehistoric horse 25 million years ago, when the ancestor still retained 3 small hoofs on each leg. In 2013, I received a commission to create a piece for the St. Paul Union Depot. It's
I walk by it every day, I'm sorry.
excellent, excellent. Precisely my desired response. It's entitled The Dream of the Great Northern Railway, and basically it depicts a creation myth. It's 6 feet by 4, and it was permanently installed in January of 2014. For the paleosteological bike rack, I again sculpted the skull in clay, wrapped it in newspaper. Once the paper was dry, I removed it, reassembled it, and as you can see, it's now ready for the detailing and painting. This weighs about maybe 2 or 3 pounds at the very most. I hope you now have a better understanding of what I do and how I'm going to create the model for the paleosteological bike rack using paper mache. The bones I make will be used for presentation purposes, as well as being ideally suited for forming the molds into which the bronze will be poured at the foundry. These bones, this is a bone that I created for the bike rack creature. As you can see, it is the humerus. The practical side of this endeavor is that I have to raise funds to cover the cost of mold making, pouring of the bronze, delivery and installation, as well as securing an acceptable location for the piece somewhere in St. Paul. I have no experience at any aspect of this journey. I began by sending out many, many letters to various departments and people in the cities, people who somebody had a hunch about, everybody I could think of. And I've gotten a lot of enthusiastic encouragement, but so far nothing close to a real site offered. I feel that I need to find somebody who sees this project as an opportunity that they want to be part of and has the understanding and experience to deal with the procedure and the process of having public art placed in St. Paul. All skeletons embody the beauty and delicate balance of nature. A single bone in itself has no real purpose, even though it's perfect. It's only when those individual bones are joined in a united effort that the skeleton becomes the ultimate functioning mechanism, and like a community, far greater than the sum of its parts. And in this case, the coolest bike rack in the world. Thank you.
Are you?
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious how you came up with the idea to combine what you've got with the work that you've done and the bike rack?
Well, this is based on a piece I created close to 20 years ago using actual mammal bones mainly from cows and horses. It's about 6 feet long, so about half the size of the bike that the bike rack will be. And having that to look at every day in my studio for many years, it occurred to me that it was a natural bike rack. Why nobody thought of this before when it makes obvious, it makes a lot of sense, I can't say, but nobody did. And so this is mine. It's part of what I do. I see bones or references to bones all around me every day, as you can imagine. So making that leap from a regular skeleton to a bike rack, I guess wasn't that big a leap for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting combination between the efficiency of the animal and the efficiency of the machine.
Yes. And like I said, the prehistoric skeleton appeals to everyone, even if they don't realize that they're carrying around experiences in museums when they were kids, or taking their kids to museums, or watching programs on television. Nothing draws the attention like a prehistoric animal. And the people's desire to engage their imagination is something I see all the time when my studio's open for the art crawls or First Fridays. It's like the quote that Lee uses about if you want somebody, you have to find somebody who already loves the sea if you want a boat built. You don't have to, you can't make somebody do it. They have to want it. It already has to be inside them. And the fascination with prehistoric skeletons, I think, is in 99% of the people you see.
Michael, one of the issues you talk about for this project is finding a place
Yes.
for it. Actually, could you tell us a little bit about what kind of sites you've already looked at or who you've talked to, and maybe what some next steps are?
Sure. When I started making this and issued a poster for it about 4 years ago, I had a research and development grant from Forecast Public Art. People have seen the poster. I've heard me talk about the bike rack, seen the sample, and the first thing most people say is, oh, it has to go to the Science Museum. It seems like a natural fit. I approached the Science Museum, and they turned it down primarily because they said their mission is to work with fact, and they didn't want to confuse their patrons.
Is that guy still in charge?
As far as I know. As far as I know. I only know what I was told. So they also said that when they raise funds, they want it to be for their own projects. Now, the beauty of this is wherever it goes, it won't cost the people anything. So.
Does the grant require that it's one and done, or can you make 100 of them and sprinkle them around the country? Does it need to be in St. Paul only, or could you put one in St. Paul, one in Minneapolis, one in St. Louis, etc.?
Right now, I'm only worried about getting this one in St. Paul. I believe that I will own the molds after the casting is completed, and I can't say for sure. I can't answer that question for sure. I would assume that since I own the molds, I can do it. Yeah.
What material is that going to be made out of?
Bronze. It will scratch. I don't want to have it maintained so it continues to look brown. I want it to age. I want it to get the green patina that classical statues have on them. I think that really adds to the character to the piece, particularly this piece.
Two things. So obviously you've tried some public funding with grants. What type of private funding have you searched for? Or?
I'm going to do a Kickstarter project in late April in conjunction with the art crawl. Every art crawl, I get thousands of people coming through my studio, and I'll tie it in with the art crawl. I'm going to be applying for the grants that are available around with the State Arts Board, with Forecast Public Art, with the Regional Arts Council, and anyone else that I'm made aware of. I've had a difficult time finding people to advise me on this project because, like I said, I have no experience doing this. I went through, after getting the grant, I felt I was in such a state of confusion. There was nothing in my experience to compare it to except when I was in high school trying to learn algebra, which I never did. And yeah, so it's, you know, like I said, I have no experience. My ignorance about how to go about doing this is nearly complete.
So how did you come up with the $100 and whatever $1,000?
Well, most of that cost will be for the foundry, for making the molds. Because if it was just a regular fleshed out body, a full body, the price of the bronze and the mold making would be minimal. But because this will require so many individual molds, that's what's going to drive the cost. I've gotten estimates from a foundry in Howard Lake, and one in Loveland, Colorado, and one in eastern Minnesota. And all of them were about the same. The one in Colorado was about 2/3 of the price of the one here, but this one being much closer and accessible for me, I figure it's a trade-off.
I happen to know that Smith Foundry in South Minneapolis works in conjunction with the University of Minnesota to have students use their facilities for projects that they did previously.
And do they have a foundry there?
Smith Foundry is off of Cedar Avenue, north of Lake Street.
Good. I'll look into that. Yes?
Yeah, have you thought about partnering with, I was going to say, a university, because obviously, like, as you ride bikes, you know, I mean, the time that I rode my bike the most is when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And then, and also, have you thought about, you know, about approaching some of the local bike shops? And I mean, there could be some conflict there, being artwork, and then, you know, having a sponsor for that, and that they may want their, you know, logo on it. I don't know, but really, like with the in Minneapolis and St. Paul, at how much we ride our bikes and how much we love that. Have you looked more into the biking community versus the art community to find some funding for this? Yeah,
I've contacted several bike organizations, and they've recommended spots where they'd like to see it, okay, but they didn't offer any strategy for raising funds. Mm-hmm. I did contact the Bell Museum because they're going to be moving to the St. Paul campus in a few years. And the director called me right back. She was real excited about the possibility, but she said they're not going to be breaking ground until summer of 2016. And at that time, they'll probably send out a call for artists. And I think in the meantime, I'm going to contact her again and see if I can visit with her personally, yes, just to keep it on our mind.
Because most buildings require that percentage of the overall cost go, like 1% go, yes, to arts. Mm-hmm. That would be an incredible opportunity.
You mentioned the bicycle community here. I see a lot of people on bikes here. I go to Madison, Wisconsin every Monday. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. In the middle of the winter, everybody's riding bicycles. And I literally see people like bipedaling their bikes because they can't ride on the ice. If you want to, you're welcome to join me on a Monday morning. We can drive down to Madison and you can go talk to their museums. One condition of the grant is that it has to be in St. Paul. Oh. But yeah, I
got it funded by putting it in Madison and finding a partner there so that you had a free one to stick in St. Paul. That would be an option for you.
I think so. I think so.
I'm working with a lot of museums in Madison right now through my part. Everybody here basically knows what that is. But if you're interested, I can really,
I definitely am. I definitely am.
And spend the day there and talk to some people.
Okay. Madison's a good town.
They're crazy about bicycles. It's phenomenal. I've never seen such a thing.
Thank you.
So what happened when you went to the Science Museum or the History Museum or the library next door? Don't they want to have this?
No, the Science Museum said that it would conflict with their mission, which is to have true science available. And that it would confuse the patrons of the museum who would think it was real. I think they're underestimating their patrons. It does.
I think it makes sense for them.
How come?
Because the Science Museum is about, it isn't necessarily about art. It's about,
Education.
It's about education, so having a fictional could be confusing.
Well, I think that imagination, though, is the first step in knowledge, and the dinosaurs we see now, like the Tyrannosaurus in the Science Museum lobby, you never would have seen a Tyrannosaurus posed like that 40 years ago, because at that time it was still absolutely true that they were very sluggish and slow moving and everything, and this one is posed with its tail up in the air and full of action. That would have never been true 40 years ago, I think.
Plus, this is affordable.
Plus, it's very affordable.
It's a real dinosaur. What the hell would it cost you?
Going back to the business side, and I think it speaks to them. I mean, what's the value proposition that you're asking for? Is it a bike rack? Is it a conversation piece? Is it mythological or historical? I think you have to really focus in on what your value prop is, and that's how you pitch it. Because it's, and the other thing is, you need to garner some media attention, because I think this is one of those cool pieces where you see it, and Karen Levin comes by and says, hey, this guy did this, he could commission this piece, it's functional, it's cool, let's put one in Madison, or let's put one in, Colorado or wherever.
Yeah, getting some PR.
Right, exactly.
I think Bill Murray would get it. Why don't you stick it outside the new baseball park?
I submitted this to the baseball park when they had a call for artists, but as it turns out, I guess their call for artists was just sort of going through the motion. They already had their art in place. So.
What are the site requirements?
What's that?
What are the site requirements? You can't just plop this in the middle of the sidewalk.
Well, it has to have a turnaround space for it, so people can approach it with their bikes and be out of traffic, well out of traffic. And I think it should be in a neighborhood or a park that goes along with its serene presentation and enhances it.
So your ideal spot, where would that be? If you could choose anywhere in the world, where would you stick it? Yeah, I'm just saying.
Great.
I've always liked Como Park for parks. I think if it was going to be in an urban setting, Ecolab Plaza would be a good location for it. And
have you reached out to them?
Actually, I haven't this time. I tried several years ago when I was working under the other grant, but I haven't recently. And
what did Union Depot say?
The Union Depot didn't respond.
I would think you'd have been in there if you.
Well, I would think that they would say, this is the St. Paul Union Depot, it's not the Michael Ball Natural History Museum.
But it could be.
It could. There's no reason it couldn't be.
Have you approached the Parks Board?
Yes, I have. I've written to the director and to individuals at Como Park, and they wrote back right away and said they would be considering my letter and responding, but I haven't gotten a response yet. But that's only been a week. And that's one of the questions I had for everybody here. When I write a letter to somebody who responds favorably, do I follow up by requesting a meeting in person? Well, yeah, or do I drop in and just present myself?
I think you tell them when you're going to contact them.
Ah, okay.
Here's my letter. I know that you got it. I'm going to follow up in a week with you on Friday at 3 o'clock. I'm going to give you a call, and then you call them at 3 o'clock, and if they don't answer, you leave them a voicemail saying, hey, I'm going to call you Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If they responded favorably, just say, when can I buy your coffee? And we'll talk more.
The mission of your letter is to get an appointment.
It's what?
Just to get an appointment. To sit
Okay.
face to face.
Okay.
That's the only mission. Your whole letter is
I don't feel that I'm going to be able to persuade anybody to want to do this project, to be part of this project. It's going to have to be somebody who wants to do it as soon as they see it.
That's all the time we have for questions, but I just wanted to make maybe one comment, and then our final question is, we've had different artists and creatives present for 1 Million Cups, and like all presenters that we've seen, most of our startup.
Thank you.
Following up such focus and serenity, I think we're going to be a little bit more frenetic and confused. So I'm here to talk about myself and Fire on the Bluff. I do have a project to talk about that got a grant that is the same that Michael got, but I'm talking more about my journey. I'm very new to entrepreneurial, at least the literal business end of entrepreneurial activity, and it's all happened in a whirlwind. So I want to talk a little bit about that and what's going on and get some ideas from you about how I can make this work, or what I should drop and what I should keep, those types of things. And first I need to figure out, maybe I do need your, maybe I do need your clicker. Sorry about that.
Oh, is it?
Yep, I think you even, yep.
You just did.
Sorry. I don't know how to actually use it.
How do I even know how to use my own technology? There we go. Oh, that's right. Now it's telling me the connection was lost. That's why it wasn't working. Okay, so a little backstory to what I'm going to be talking about today. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, December of 2013, my family moved from where we lived on one part of the east side of St. Paul to this renovated Victorian house on the corner of 4th and Mariah in Dayton's Bluff. And it was a momentous move for us. We really had really wanted some change, and we really wanted to be in a place that had a lot of energy, and that was moving in a direction that my family is moving in. And so we moved into Dayton's Bluff, and immediately were in a community that was very amenable to ideas and change. And the house itself and 7 other houses on the block have all been renovated by the community as an effort to bring the community back up from degradation and other things that were happening on that block and elsewhere in the neighborhood. And so I've discovered that this was a great place to be for change. I had been working for about 10 years in the open source software community using a web development software called Drupal, and I was feeling in a rut. I have a background that includes arts-based community development and graphic design and community organizing, and I wasn't using a lot of those skills, at least not to the level that I really wanted to be. And I felt that this was a great time to jump out of that world and see what other things that I could do with the skills and the ideas that I had. So I quit my job in April of 2014 and moved forward. I knew that I was going to need to eat, though, so my skills in Drupal are in demand and are marketable. I just felt that I didn't have the flexibility that I needed working for the company I was working for. So what did I do? I started a new one. I have 2 other freelancers, friends of mine, one of who's in the back row today, Tim, decided that we all wanted more flexibility and more capacity in the work that we were doing. So we kind of loosely got together and formed a company that would allow us to work as much or as little as we needed to, have a brand, and have the capacity to work on big projects or small projects, but also to do other things. So that was my first step, make sure that I had my fallback for being able to make a living. But then about a month later, the Knight Arts Challenge grant that Michael already talked about came to be, and it was really low barrier. It was, I think it was 150 words maximum. Anybody could present an idea. You could present as many ideas as you wanted. Just throw them into the ring. So I did. I had 4 ideas, and one of them stuck, and I'm going to talk about that one today. So I was thinking about, I'm in Dayton's Bluff now. There are a lot of things going on. What can I do for this challenge that's neighborhood-centric and that could take the talents that I have and bring them to bear? So I was beginning to get involved with the Dayton's Bluff Community Council, the citizen participation group of the neighborhood, and as luck would have it, they just received a license, or the ability to get a license, for a low-power FM radio station, and we're organizing around starting up a neighborhood radio station. I have radio in my background, did a lot of community radio in college, and I've been a radio junkie my whole life, so I figured this is the nexus. This is what I should do. I should come up with a creative project that would utilize the radio station and the community to put something together. I have a friend who runs Teatro del Pueblo, a Latino community theater group on the west side of St. Paul, and I dreamt up the idea of putting together a 20-episode, 15-minute episode radio novelas, sort of a radio soap opera, in using the Latino community on the east side of St. Paul, collaborating with Teatro del Pueblo to run workshops in the neighborhood, to draw stories from that group, help develop scripts, train people to perform in these and write in these and produce a radio novella series. And to be able to kick that off as well with a live sort of Prairie Home Companion-esque hour-and-a-half variety show, music, skits, fake ads, whatever the community, whatever we decided to put together, and make a big splash to kick off the radio series, doing that, and then throughout the year have 2 others of these big events at other different community or neighborhood theater spaces in St. Paul. Meanwhile, record the radio series and start broadcasting at least on the radio station that will be broadcasting about a 5 to 10 mile area radius in the heart of the east side of St. Paul in Dayton's Bluff area. All the while, we're looking to make this a replica model, maybe work with other communities, have it be, the training aspect of it plus the arts aspect of it could be done anywhere, could be done again in the same neighborhood, it could be done in other places. There are other low-power FM radio stations that are starting up in St. Paul and in Minneapolis and all over the United States. So the idea that this would be more than just a one-off as well is the idea. That idea is the one that won. There is my budget was $150,000 for all of that, 3 live performances, the 20 episode arc, and everything surrounding getting all of that done. The grant is for $50,000, so projecting a $100,000 budget. So at this point, I'm in the midst of, or just starting pretty much, the fundraising challenge to come up with at least a $50,000 match, hopefully another 50% more than that, so that I could reach the original budget that I had and not have to pare the project down. My fundraising plan, to summarize quickly, I'm keeping track of time here, is like Michael, going after the low-hanging fruit in terms of local philanthropic grant opportunities, arts-based, community-based grant opportunities, using the partners that I have that have some cachet in that world, Teatro and the Dayton's Bluff Community Council. Also looking at underwriting for the radio broadcasts or podcasting, those types of things, looking at what we could do in that aspect of things. Some sort of Kickstarter campaign once there's something visible, something to latch onto, and then potentially selling tickets or getting corporations to underwrite tickets for the actual live performances themselves as a fundraising tool. That's roughly my fundraising plan, of which not even $1 of which has been raised as of yet. That brings me to, because it was mentioned in the email and alluded to by Lee, challenge number 2 came up about the middle of the year. Another thing that I've been doing as a hobbyist is baking and pizza making. And last summer I catered the local Drupal camp, which had about 200 people. I made about 100 pizzas at a brick oven over in the farmers market in Minneapolis for a party, and I've been lobbied ever since to start a business, and heavy encouragement of that. So I started looking at the opportunity potentially of having a mobile wood-fired oven that I could use food truck style and maybe marry with arts and community-based projects, have a food component to them. And I figured long-term, let me do this arts grant thing, let me figure out this Triplo thing. This will happen in the future, and through a series of fortuitous circumstances, this Airstream trailer that already has a wood-fired oven built into it and all of the other pieces necessary to run a commercial kitchen appeared one day in my email inbox, and 3 days later I bought this thing. And in October, I went out to Pennsylvania with a friend with a pickup truck, and we hauled it back here, and it's in my driveway. And now everybody in the neighborhood and all the people that were urging me to do this business in the first place are wondering when the heck, now that it's 40, 50 degrees outside, when they're going to be able to get pizzas out of this oven from me. So ever since October, I've been trying to simultaneously develop a business model around this. As, like I say, spring and around time, that's beginning to be a very, very stressful and present opportunity on my mind. So here's kind of the summary. I've got this Radio San Pablo, which is a shorthand for the Radio Novelis project that I'm coordinating, and I've got my challenges are raising the money. The radio station itself doesn't exist yet, and I've realized that I have to become a primary organizer and mover in getting that radio station on the air so that I have a mechanism for the broadcast of this. So I'm working on that as well. Coordinating the project, I'm realizing I am the coordinator without receiving any funds for that until I can get the grant to release those funds. So I have to raise and do all that work on spec for the time being. And I'm finding that it's far harder to coordinate that on my own, even with partners, especially since they are similarly doing other things that they're focused on. And time is of the essence. We, as Michael didn't mention this, but we have a year to raise the funds and a year to do the project following that. That ticks back to last September as day one for that year. So I've already lost a quarter of time. Like I say, I haven't raised any money yet. So there's that. And managing my time. The time is double-edged sword there. The mobile oven, the Pizza Works idea, licensing, becoming a vendor, getting health department to recognize me, finding a commercial kitchen. There's 100 pages worth of stuff that I have to wade through and fill out in order for that thing to happen. Then I also have to be good at it. I have to actually, besides making weird pizzas, I have to actually do something consistent that is marketable and figure that out before I can start. Plus I have competition. And that's actually even getting even more present as time goes on. Underneath all of this is the Triplo, which actually does occupy most of my time because it's the only thing providing an income for me right now, and it's actually been far more successful than I would have imagined. We've grown. We've got sort of a loose collaborative of about 8 people doing work on Drupal projects and related trainings and mentoring, and sort of a fledgling co-working community around that as well. So dealing with that, expanding that, and paying attention to that, and not abrogating my responsibility to that partnership while doing these other things is where I'm at. So as you can imagine, I'm full of questions and things that I'm thinking about. I'm looking for ideas about fundraising, whether my little skeleton of a plan that I mentioned makes sense to people, or if I'm not thinking far enough out of the box or inside of the box to make that happen. Whether this, especially with the radio project, does it make sense to just do that project and be done with it and see what happens, or think about this as a longer term idea of doing projects like that, which has been on my mind. Do I just keep juggling and siloing these things, or merge them somehow? And what would a merging of all of these things that I'm doing, as interested in I am, besides me being the common element, is there actually a business model there? And on that, I've been trying to figure all of this out and then bring it full-born into the world and then say, here it is. I'm realizing now that I probably should be bringing people onto the inside of this, whether that means partnerships, whether that means I hire people. And I have questions about what people might be able to tell me about how the best way to go that. And then just for this group and for otherwise, am I talking about this the right way? Am I telling the right stories, do you think? Am I asking the right questions? That's what I've got, and I leave it open for people to ask me questions. Yes.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Nice project. I'm full of brainstorms and strategies, so my suggestion would be on the Airstream Pizza Oven Kitchen. I want to see it.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of other people want to see it, so I would take that Airstream around this city and make some pizzas with it and fundraise that way. You have a year to raise the funds. And you're also promoting the Latino community, so I would add tacos to the menu.
Okay.
And certainly consider broadcasting from the Airstream.
That's a great idea.
So it doesn't take much equipment, as you know, to broadcast from the Airstream. You have an iconic figure just like your house, and it's amazing that you've been able to pull together all of these wonderful toys. Airstream, anybody who knows what an Airstream is would definitely want to see it. And if you tell your story as you're promoting it around the city or showing it off in the city, you know, I mean, even in the art parade, you know, the art cars.
The art cars, yeah.
That's going around. So, yeah, I think you've got all the elements there. You just need to tweak them and
thank you.
Your presentation, you know, will work.
Thank you.
Now, each individual business is completely separate, correct? Because the Airstream doesn't relate to the radio project.
No, not as it currently stands. It was not built into that project because I didn't have it at the time. But I'm thinking in the future, I would like to merge projects like that together. But right now, no, there's no direct connection other than I'm the primary person in both of those projects.
I think with the radio project, I think that you need to get your positioning and your story down, and when creating funding and going out to, you know, to ask people for money on it, like to design a logo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like, so people can envision it a little bit more than just, but I do think that you need to get your, you know, your positioning down, which is a little bit of your elevator speech,
mm-hmm.
and what it is and how it's going to impact that community. So, but I love it, and I love that you have all these ideas.
Thanks. Thank you. That's a good point. I mean, for the radio project, it's all been grant applications, which is very different than what I'm doing this morning. The sort of that pitch idea. So having that actually is something that I need to do. That's a great suggestion.
One of the things you're running into is the fact that you're entrepreneurial. As I can attest, it's crazy because you get new ideas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should just try and focus on one of them. You know, just narrow it in. I don't know which one. I'm not going to try and advise you. I'm just saying that if you come to people with 3 ideas, you've lost them.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody's going to give you money. Anybody's going to give you a little bit of time. They're interested in one of those.
Right.
But the moment you pitch 3, you've lost the company. So you're going to have to try and focus. I like this idea of trying to use the Airstream as a
promotional
model for the other businesses, but that's one of the things that I think should happen is you should try and focus a little bit more. If you scatter around, people won't take you seriously.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And this is the first time I've actually talked about all 3 of those things in one breath. That's part of what has been my problem is focusing one thing at a time. It's neglecting the other 2, and it's like, well, which one should I be focusing on? So I haven't actually pitched this as a merger to anybody. It's always been here. I'm here to talk about the radio project. I'm here to talk about the pizza kitchen, whatever the situation is. So but that's that confirms my my suspicion about those ideas. Yes. Okay. So I got to figure that out.
Barry, going off the idea of just using that Airstream as a way to make money for it, I mean, I think an interesting thing would be to partner with existing organizations within that region and doing joint fundraisers. So part of it, if you do a joint fundraiser, part of those funds would go to that organization so that you'd be able to capitalize on their members and audience that they already have and the reason why they want to promote an event for you. And part of those funds would
go back to them.
And go back to them, and part of them would go back to you, which is also a project that's going to support that community in the long run too.
That's a good idea.
I encourage you to think backwards and figure out where you want to be and figure out how to get there instead of trying to figure out where you are and how to go forward.
Okay.
You need to get this many dollars to make the radio station happen, and maybe you can do that by doing fundraising with pizza with Mexican motif and work it out backwards. I need $50,000. How many pizzas is that? How many ounces is that? How much material and how much profit is that? And work it out backwards.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Talk to the Latino radio stations locally, because maybe they can handle production for that. The other thing that comes to mind too is podcasting. That's a big thing right now.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about podcasting. No, I've not actually reached out to any of the commercial Latino radio projects in the Twin Cities, but that's something that I need to do. I do want to have more of a I guess I wouldn't need this. I've been kind of waiting for a team to be together, including somebody that's bilingual, which I'm not, to be a part of that, have an outreach person that I can work with.
That's the other thing too, and it's a good idea, but who's your market, and do they even still listen to the radio? I know they like novellas. Are you going to wait for Latino people in our county? They love the TV novellas. But obviously, we're the 8th largest Latino market. It could be huge.
Yeah.
Syndication.
I've thought about those things as well, and I've looked into the answers to the questions that I gave to Michael about, will you be able to make 1 million of these someplace else, or do you have to have this one? And I know that the creative rights will retain with the project, however we define that. So we could do things like syndication. The market for radio is definitely key, it's the challenge for radio in general and for low power FM. But I think there's a niche there, and the fact that it's neighborhood centric and that this could be done other places similarly, I think there really is some traction there, or could be some traction, but we have to create that as well as and I think the part of the idea is that having a creative thing like these radio novellas might spur that interest in listening to the radio and bring people to the station and create more of a movement in that direction. That's an ulterior motive to this project. So hopefully those will go hand in hand, but that's good suggestions. Thank you.
For the radio, I was kind of thinking of like public radio or like a college radio station, and that would help, I guess, just for like broadcasting, but then also maybe of kind of publicizing and fundraising. And then like the Airstream trailer, and then of like being broadcasting thing. I was thinking then too of like for the live shows of like, what if you had that at a park and then got your food?
That's a good point.
With the pizza, then like the two of those kind of working together, and so then even if it was maybe like broadcast more widely or podcast or something like that, if it was being recorded live at a park, then that would kind of create that community atmosphere.
To bring people out.
Like happening like every weekend or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. An idea for merging these in sort of not a programmatic way, but more of just a symbiotic way.
Did you project revenues from advertising on the radio station?
At least in terms of the low power FM station, the conditions of the license are completely non-commercial. So underwriting similar to what you can do on a public radio station is as close to advertising as you can get for that. But nothing is preventing, as was suggested, this reaching a wider venue through commercial avenues, as well as or after or the project is broadcast non-commercially. So that's an area that I want to learn some more about. I don't want it to overshadow the initial mission for that sort of non-commercial local aspect to it that wouldn't be very, very commercial, but to figure out a way of creating a revenue stream potentially in advance that would allow us to fund that and then hit other markets.
Well, the other thing you're talking about is restrictions to the low and FM radio wave, whatever. What if you did it live and then did a Google Hangout on top of it? You could then broadcast it on the internet even without the interference of the FM deal, so you could create a much larger audience in the global audience.
I anticipate the radio station itself, part of my web work will make sure that station is live streamed and as far as we can legally with licenses have archived versions of programs available, so kind of the podcasting model, maybe even more specifically podcasting avenues as well. So I expect there to be the potential for a worldwide audience, and if we market things and properly, potentially even at that live level. So yes, while the terrestrial broadcast will just be within that 5 or 10 mile radius, I would like to generate enough buzz that people everywhere that are interested in this will find it, and it will get life that way.
Research on the cost of running such a radio station?
Yeah, we have budgets and all sorts of projections for aspects of the station. The station itself, the equipment is there. The transmitter will be installed. The studio facilities are being built out right now. So all of that is there. The rest of it is streaming costs, licensing for use of music, staffing it up, which we haven't done. It's an all volunteer effort right now. So there are some mystery pockets there that still need to be brought out. But yes, there's some hard numbers and some soft numbers in place, and fundraising that's occurring for just the radio station aspect. Like I say, I wasn't expecting to be a part of needing to help that along, but I've become more involved in that as well as part of this. Yes.
Well, my in-laws are Mexican also, and the ones that I see watching the telenovelas are the Mexicans. They're Spanish speaking.
Okay.
If you're talking about a bilingual program, you might be kind of limiting your market in that way to people that speak both English and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Better off.
Just Spanish?
Like Spanish.
What we've decided to do is to allow the community to determine that, the people that end up, the community members that decide to participate in this. We want it to reflect their stories and the way that they want to communicate and the way that they do communicate. So I've left it open. Al from Teatro, who's done some work with not broadcast radio novellas, but actually doing stage versions of these types of things in other communities around the country, has mentioned that they've always ended up being bilingual because the communities that he works with live every day in a bilingual society, so they're by necessity having to be bilingual. So he's assuming that they will be bilingual, but it will not be by design. We won't say it is going to be bilingual, we're going to do 50% English or that type of thing. It's going to be whatever the community decides how it wants to tell its story, that's the way it's going to happen. That's been the mission of it so far. So I'm completely open to that, besides not having any Spanish language facility whatsoever. I'm open to that being the case. And the radio station is going to be multilingual. There will be programming exclusively in Hmong and in Spanish, potentially some East African languages. The neighborhood is extremely diverse that way, and the station is there so that will happen, so that people will be able to turn on the radio and hear programming in their language. So there will be blocks of time that will be completely in Spanish as well. Whether the radio novellas are part of that or not, it remains to be seen. But that's a good point. I haven't done some actual on-the-ground research yet on that part of it.
I think the people that would be maybe more involved with the project would be the bilingual people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the brand new immigrants that only speak Spanish. People have been here for a while and they're thinking more.
That makes sense.
They're going to be bilingual.
So it's something to address, to bring up. Who's the audience for producing the show, and who will be the audience to actually be listening to it, and how to bridge that. Thank you for that.
We have questions today. You've already outlined what some of the needs that you have, but we always like to ask what this community can do for you.
Well, being a sounding board is immensely helpful. I'm going to continue to come. I've come to 3 or 4 of these now. I keep coming to these, and I learn a lot. I watched yours last night on YouTube as I was figuring out what I was in for, and so even though it was a product-based presentation, I'm learning a lot about that. So I'm willing to take brutally honest feedback, and thank you for peppering me with questions. So at any point, if I realized because I biked today that I didn't bring my bag, it has all my business cards in it, but I'm open to being contacted through this network or personally with any ideas you have or opportunities that you might know about, or if you want to be involved in some way. Completely open to all of that. So thank you. Thank you for that, and any ideas that you have now or in the future.